Good afternoon, we bid to Dr. Audrey and the rest of our class. For today, our group will be presenting the artificial and natural spawning of Atlantic salmon. These are our group members: Azlan, me, myself, David, Lim Yu Jun, Wibowo Prasetyo, and Zulkifli Rahman.
So hello and hi, I am Zulkifli bin Rahman. Today I will be presenting the introduction to spawning of Atlantic salmon. It is the process of egg release or deposit into water, which consists of reproductive cell, which is the male and female gamete, which when both of the cells are then fertilized in the water. For the natural spawning, the spawn and rearing occur naturally. The spawning occur naturally without any help of supplementary nutrient or any artificial hormone that help the fish to grow. Other than that, it produced by local and regional climates, which mean when the fish are in captive, the climates are all naturally occur. Then the habitats are formed by nature, which mean the water flows are by nature, and also the surrounding, the feed that occur are also created by the nature. Then for the artificial spawning, it is the it happen when the product are different from the parent species. This is occur because of the help of the supplementary nutrient and also the help of artificial hormone to increase the quality of the fish. Other than that, it also help to increase the number of the production, and also artificial spawning been done by imitating the climate and the habitat, the climate to improve the influence, to give the best condition to influence the fish to produce the best product of the species.
Good day, Doctor. My name is Azlan bin Aziz, and I will be talking about the natural spawning of Atlantic salmon. Usually, when Atlantic salmon reach its reproductive size, it will begin the long migration to the preferred spawning ground, which is freshwater rivers. And Atlantic salmon will return to spawn in the river where the hatching place that they've been before. And then thousands of individuals migrate to and reach the spawning ground at the same time. Usually the female will dig a nest in light gravel called red, and then will lay the eggs into the river bottom, and the males will fertilize the eggs externally, and then the females will bury the nest. After that, the life cycle will be continued. I will talking about the life cycle after this. And one study has been done by R.J. Gibson at year of 1993, which is rapid water at the tails of pool is needed for the Atlantic salmon for spawning. And usually the spawning will be on the upstream edge of gravel bar, and then it will take usually the depth of 25 centimeter of water, and the water velocity usually is like 30 to 45 centimeters per second, or with a maximum velocity is about 2 body lengths per second. And it needs a substrate or irregularly shaped stones of cobbles, pebbles, and gravels. Okay, after that I will talk about the Atlantic salmon life cycle. This is the research from Fisheries and Ocean of Canada. Then the Atlantic salmon's adult will spawn in the red. Like I just told before, the female one will dig a nest in the red. Red is a nest that placed on the river bottom, and then the male will spawn externally, and then the female will bury the eggs again. Then after the egg space, it will reach what we call alevin It's called Alvin for the fry size or after hatching size, which is looks like 2 centimeter, and they will feeding from its attached yolk sac. This is same like other fish. They after hatching phase, they will eat only on the attached yolk sac, and then it will continue with the fry size. And when it reach fry size, usually they will feed small microscopic in the stream or in the river, and it eventually reach a length of 5 to 8 meter before maturing into pa. Pa usually have a dark vertical masking with a single red dot between each one. Okay, and then after the pa, they will reach adult size, which is after 1 to 3 years. The salmon will be back to the river in which they were born and spawn, like on the April to November. This is the phase that they will be spawning. And yeah, that's it. I think that's it from me.
Hi, I'm David, and I will be presenting to you about the artificial spawning of Atlantic salmon. Before we start anything, we have to first select our rootstock. Before doing this, there are some factors we have to take into account. 1 is the sexual maturity of the broodstock. 2 is the size where black spot is dominantly above the lateral line. And 3, of course, the quality and sperm and eggs must be good. There are 2 ways to stimulate this artificial spawning in Atlantic salmon. 1 is by manipulation of spawning conditions. As we know, Atlantic salmons are anadromous fish, which means they migrate up rivers to freshwater from seawater to spawn. This kind of stimulation can be mimicked inside of captivity. For example, stimulation for spawning is done by moving the broodstocks from seawater to freshwater to mimic the natural conditions of their natural habitats. This is mostly done 2 months prior to stripping. The next type of stimulation is by injection of hormones. It is the use of synthetic components of high power of gonadotropin. Females are injected with 2 milligrams of hypophysis extract or pituitary extract. On the other hand, males are injected with the hormone, and 6 hours later, it is ready for stripping. After all female and male broodstocks have been injected with hormones and separated into 2 different tanks, one male is put together with the injected females to act as an indicator of the ovulation process. Other than that, we can also use ultrasound technology for the females to check on the condition of the eggs. Next comes the process of egg and milk stripping. The eggs that come from the female are stripped into a bowl and then fertilized with the milk or sperm that comes from the male Atlantic salmon. Once the eggs are hatched, they become alevin, also known as the second stage of Atlantic salmon. They are provided with matting or stony substrate to mimic the natural gravel they have in the wild, which are called red. In artificial spawning, the incubation of eggs and alevin will take place in water that is less than 10 to 15 degrees Celsius. Next comes the process of feeding and grow out. Alevins, the second stage of Atlantic salmon, will have yolk sacs, and they will roughly consume that whole yolk sac in 1 month. After that, the alevins are transported into bigger tanks and inert feeds are used to feed them. After around 8 to 16 months, they are transferred to seawater cages for grow-out until they reach a marketable size. That's all from me. Thank you.
Greetings to Dr. Audrey. So I'll present about the comparison between the natural and the artificial spawning of Atlantic salmon. So for the first point, it's the environmental requirements needed for successful spawning. For the natural spawning, it needs a higher requirement compared to artificial spawning. For example, it's the lower photoperiod and temperature, which is important for the Atlantic salmon to turn matured in this period. And the freshwater and light gravel substrate, high water velocity is the important element for the Atlantic salmon to spawn in the wild. And this element is only can be found in the upstream area, and This is why the Atlantic salmon have to migrate. So for the artificial spawning, it needs a less requirement compared to the natural spawning. This is because only the gravel substrate and low water temperature are used for hatching fertilized eggs. So for the second point is the factors to induce spawning. In natural surrounding, actually wild salmon is a landlocked population, and certain wild salmon only spawn in their natural river, where some of them even spawn only in the river section that they are being born. So this is the biggest challenge for the natural spawning of Atlantic salmon. As for artificial spawning, we don't have these kinds of problems because we are using hormones, which is the gonadotropin releasing hormone by injections in saline solution or in the form of pellets, which is with the dose of 10 microgram per kg of fish. Okay. For the third point is the spawning timing. In natural spawning, the spawning timing is around December to April, where the water temperature with average of 3.3 degrees Celsius with the photo period of 5 to 9.5 hours. As for artificial spawning, the artificial surrounding and hormones can be created and given to induce spawning of the farm Atlantic salmon. And with this kind of techniques, we can produce Atlantic salmon in the farm throughout the years. So for the fourth point is the survival rate of fry. In natural spawning, it is relatively low with average of only 0.079%. As for artificial spawning, it is relatively higher with average of 0.34%, which is 4 times higher compared to natural spawning. Lastly, for the survival rate of rootstocks, in the natural spawning, it is relatively low compared to the artificial spawning because, as we all know, only 10% of the wild salmon able to survive for second batch of spawning. This is because in the wild, the salmon will migrate from the sea to the freshwater environment to spawn, and during this period they are fasting and not eat at all. Because of that, after they spawn and return to the sea, they will usually out of energy and will die directly in the sea area. So for the artificial spawning, it is relatively higher compared to natural spawning because the salmon can be rejuvenated effectively by resuming feeding after spawning, and the survival rate can be increased to above 75%. So in conclusion, with all technologies that we use for Atlantic salmon aquaculture, there are seldom people use natural spawning in the farm compared to the artificial spawning. Because artificial spawning is relatively lower cost and easier to be conducted compared to natural spawning in the Atlantic salmon aquaculture. So that's all from me. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Wibo Prastio. I would like to present about natural or artificial spawning for Atlantic salmon. And this is part conclusion. So the conclusion from natural or artificial spawning is natural spawning of Atlantic salmon is not profitable in aquaculture business because it needs more maintenance and it's a tired work. And then if we do natural spawning, it takes more time because in artificial they have bigger survival rate for fry and broodstock fish, and also natural spawning have more challenge to do seed production because, like I said before, natural spawning is not profitable. That's the first, and then it's tired work, and the broodstock needs come back to Natal River or the place where the broodstock hatching first time. And then if we do natural spawning, we need more like control the water temperature and then more complicated things. And also it's more easy to do artificial spawning every time with hormone injection, because if we do natural spawning, it needs like around December until April for the broodstock to spawning.